This episode of Art Block is brought to you by the supporters of my Patreon. If you'd like to support the show, the link to my page is in the description below. Hello and welcome to Art Block, the show where we talk about art and how it's made. Today we'll be talking about selling your artwork, making it into a business, as well as some general information on how to work with clients for those looking to take the next step in their art career. So the first thing to ask yourself is whether you're ready to sell art to begin with. Now this isn't really is my art a high enough quality to sell, but rather, are you ready to take on the discipline of doing art for payment? I think a lot of people are under the impression that making money off of art or even making it a career is pretty easy. That you just spend all day drawing and doing what you want. Sadly, this is not the case, as I myself have learned that there is a lot of work and effort that goes into running my business, and it can get rather stressful trying to manage multiple projects and having other responsibilities outside of it. If you are planning on doing art for payment, you are going to have to be willing to do a lot of stuff. You'll need to work with deadlines, make major changes to projects, scrap entire sketches, and dealing with annoying or picky customers. Though doing art as a career is definitely fun, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it, and you'll need to develop a fairly tough hide, so to speak, in order to maintain it. Keep in mind that when you do art commissions, you're creating art for a client who's paying you to make what they want. Sure, you can add some stylistic flair or some suggestions here and there, but in the end, your job is to create what the client wants. So if you feel like you're up to the task for selling your art, let's talk about the actual ins and outs. For this video, I'll be breaking down art as a business into a few important categories: marketing, pricing, organization, production, customer interaction, and completion. Starting off with marketing, this is where your career will begin. Given most of what I'll be talking about here is in the online context, most people want to start with establishing some sort of online profile. For those who are stuck on where to post, I've covered some varying platforms in a previous video, which I'll link in the card if you need it. Basically, you're going to want to select a place to set up shop, so to speak, and develop your online gallery. At this point, your biggest goal is going to be developing an online follower base, and from my observation, the best way to go about this is by creating fan art. Now when I say create fan art, I don't mean to create stuff that's just popular at the time, create stuff that you're interested in. Speaking from personal experience, becoming popular based on something you're not interested in anymore can be a pretty big toll on not only how much attention you get on other stuff, but it can be a real tax on your psyche. In the end, a smaller amount of more loyal fans is a lot better than a large follower base of people who follow you for one thing. In general, there is no set amount of followers you need to start your commissions, though I would at least recommend trying to get a good amount of art posted to your gallery before you start advertising prices. When it comes to the actual marketing of your art, organization and simplicity is key. I found that a lot more clients will prefer a quick and easy to read guide over a proper document stating every bit of information about the product. When making your price sheet, you want everything to be short and clear, showing examples of what you have to offer via pictures, including the price and your general terms of service. From personal experience, I found that the presentation is really key here. Of course, add your own stylistic flair when it comes to these sheets, but also be aware that appearing professional and well-made will win you more points when it comes to getting clients. Now, when advertising your commission prices, the way you're going to go about it is going to have to be a little bit different depending on the platform you're using and how much of a follower base you have. I have personally found that keeping in close contact with your fan base is probably going to be the most important when it comes to getting consistent commissions. A lot of artists like myself run their own Discord servers where they announce their commissions when they're open. This is good because it not only tags people when your commissions are open, but I've also found that using platforms such as Discord and Skype to work out commissions is a lot faster because of the instant messaging system. When it comes to actually advertising your work to other people, an understanding of the platform you're using is going to be essential. What functions does the platform have to help you get more eyes on your work? For example, on DeviantArt, posting your price list to groups is probably going to be the most helpful when it comes to getting attention on your list. With sites like Twitter, using hashtags and asking for retweets can be really important to getting eyes on your work, since the infinite scrolling method of Twitter can make it very easy for your tweet to get lost in the crowd. The general rule of thumb is making sure as many people get to see it as possible, since that increases your chances of finding potential clientele. Now let's talk about pricing for a minute. Probably the biggest thing I've seen a lot of inexperienced artists struggle with is how to price their work. I think a lot of them focus on keeping their prices low to seem more affordable without considering that you're supposed to be paid for the time spent doing the service rather than the actual product. Say you spend 3 hours on a really complex sketch and you charge $10 for sketches. $3 an hour isn't exactly going to be enough to cover for rent. Admittedly, it is a bit hard to predict just how much time you're going to need to invest into each commission. I've had trouble myself where I will undercharge clients for really complex commissions. Each person kinda has to figure out their own system. For me, I found the most effective system is to start with a base price and then add on to it based on the complexity of what the customer wants. So let's say, for example, someone wanted me to draw them a flat colored design. In general, the most basic of flat colored pictures takes me about 2 hours to draw, with the sketching and line work phases being the most time-consuming parts of the process. This is going to have to be something you learn from experience, but generally for each complexity, I would add a small surcharge of a few dollars. In cases of highly detailed designs, I may end up adding an extra $10 to $20 purely on the basis of how much longer I'll take to spend on simply doing the line work. If you're planning on doing group shots, I would maybe reduce the price slightly for each character. However, if they all have complex clothing or markings, then I would just consider pricing them individually and then adding the total up. When it comes to the actual pricing, quality and experience does play a rather big part. I'd say if you're under 2 years of drawing experience, you probably shouldn't charge more than minimum wage for your hourly rate. As you get more experience, you can add more to your base price and surcharges. Of course, when it comes to pricing your artwork, having a general understanding of quality and how your art compares to other artists is necessary for the success of your business. Think of it less as a someone is better than me and thus my art isn't worth much, but more of a mentality of why would people pay me $30 for a sketch when they can go to someone with a similar quality of art and pay the same amount for a full color drawing. It's just as important to make sure you don't overcharge yourself as it is important to make sure you don't undercharge. Another thing a lot of artists don't really take into consideration with art is taxes. I believe in the United States you have to make around $1,500 a year to be required to file for federal taxes. However, a lot of states also have state income tax and a bunch of other annoying paperwork to keep track of. Something I would recommend is that if you're doing pretty well in terms of your income is to maybe considering applying to be recognized as a business. There's a lot of nitty-gritty stuff that comes to the topic, but this is something that I think everyone should keep in mind when it comes to pricing and tracking their income. When it comes to actually receiving payments, I would encourage everyone to either have payments up front or do a non-refundable percentage up front to have the client pay afterwards. This is to ensure that you as the artist don't get scammed out of your time and hard work, and the client doesn't have to worry about remembering to pay you later. From my experience, PayPal is going to be the best way of doing payments since it's basically what everyone uses and will be the most secure. The next thing that is important to discuss is organization and how you interact with your clients. When asked people what they thought was the most important thing to know when it comes to doing commissions, a majority of them often brought up artists keeping their clients updated and having good customer interaction. When it comes down to customer interaction, you need to think about it in a sense that if you're kind towards even the most frustrating of customers, it will spell better for your business because it will mean a lot more people will be satisfied and thus lead to having more business in the future. Of course, I would encourage you to be kind and considerate towards people in general, but overall it is in both of the client and artist's interest to be flexible and work together to reach the final product. Keeping organized and maintaining frequent contact with your client is also important. Of course, your art doesn't need to be done in a day, but going months or even a year without an update to the client is not only discourteous, but it's technically stealing because your client is paying you to create a product. My personal system of organization is I set up a Google form with the date I confirmed the commission, the name or username of the client, and whether or not it's been paid. I also include the type of commission, status, and description for what's happening in the commission to help me budget my time better. I found that color coding my commissions works best for me. Anything I complete, I turn green. Anything on hold or waiting on the client for something is yellow. Anything urgent or with a deadline is red. And anything that's timed out or I haven't heard from the client on in a while gets turned gray. By putting all of your commission info in one place, it's easy to keep track of your queue and what to work on. Another thing I'm trying out is scheduling when I work on commissions by using a planner. Essentially, at the end of each week, I'll plan on what I'm going to do for the next week and write it down. Usually I try to pick at least one day a week to take for personal things. Holidays sometimes do make this tricky. I would encourage you to try to get the stuff higher up on the list done first, but at the same time you don't want to forget to pace yourself. Burning yourself on a commission is something you really want to avoid, especially for projects that may have a close deadline. If it's something big like a full piece, try breaking up production on it throughout a week or so. This brings us to the next stage, which is production and completion. Given everyone's production cycle is different, there isn't really a set path to this stage, but rather just some general things to keep in mind since this is where working with your clients really comes into play. For me, I generally try to update my clients when there's any major changes to the piece, such as going from the sketch phase to the line art phase. Depending on what platforms you use, how responsive the client is, and how fast of a worker you are, the time to completion and how fast you make corrections will vary. I would say try to keep at a decent pace. Don't overwork yourself, but in general try to get commissions updated and done sooner rather than later. Also, this may just be something I learned the hard way, but in general you should keep the commission and work in progress private until the client is satisfied and gives you the okay to post the artwork. Even if you think the piece is complete, the client may still want changes to be done, or in some cases may not want others to see it at all. It's really more of a courtesy thing, but especially if it's not safe for work, then I'd make a point to make sure that your client is fully okay with you posting before actually hitting the submit button. So, you've finally finished your commission. You've crossed it off your list to do, and you've gotten it submitted to your gallery of choice. You've officially become a business person and know how to sell your art. So, did any of the steps I discussed help you guys sell your art? Is there something I left out that you guys feel would have been good to include? Tell me about it in the comments below. I'm interested in hearing from you guys. Before we wrap up the video, I also want to give a shout out to a close friend and patron of mine, Max, who has requested that I shout out his pages given he's a Legacy Diamond rank supporter of mine. He has quite a variety of content covering stuff such as supply and demand, travel vlogs, and even providing some flight and royalty-free footage. He also has a DeviantArt and Redbubble page where he posts his photography. Some of his stuff is really amazing. My favorite pieces from him personally are the more atmospheric ones, such as Family at the Light Line. For those who are interested in his work, I've left links in the description. I really owe him a lot after quite a few years of his support, so hopefully this shoutout gets him the attention he really deserves. And that's about it for today's episode. If you guys liked what you saw and you want to see more, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell. It supports me and is practically free. Also be sure to follow me on Twitter and DeviantArt where I post artwork and updates about the show. Want to chat? I've got a Discord server where we can do just that. $5 and up patrons get access to their own special rank and private channel. Thank you all for watching, I'm Spirit, and I'll see you next time.